I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but the beauty a rich man's world. I have turned the Hello and welcome to another episode. I'm Clary, I'm also known as Fairy, and I'll be your host today, as always. In today's episode, we will be discussing co-regulation with Suzanne Scott. We'll be discussing the ins and outs of co-regulation in parenting. As always, I offer listeners an opportunity to listen into other episodes on various topics around relationships, trauma and love at thefairyshow.com. So our guest today is Suzanne Scott. Suzanne is the founding director of the charity Trauma Informed Parenting. She is a parent, a former hairdresser and foster carer, now a trauma informed parent coach and charities founding director. Suzanne is passionate about bringing an awareness to parents and caregivers of the trauma informed approach in helping adults move away from using fear and control and instead move into a place of calm, connection and curiosity. Today, we will be sharing about the importance of co-regulation in parenting. So hi there, Suzanne. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us.
Hi there. Thanks for having me. Great
Fantastic.
to be here.
So firstly, please do share with us a little about what actually is co-regulation in parenting.
Yeah, it's an ideal I had never even heard of. I set out on this journey. Co-regulation is when we regulate ourselves and we use that regulation to share that regulation with our child. And that is how children learn their own self-regulation after doing that many times over and over and over. That's how they learn to become.
Amazing. And so tell us a little bit about you and about, I guess, a little bit about your past and sort of what was normal for you. Like, did this exist then? Did you have any experience of this in your past? How was that for you?
No. Yeah, well, no, I grew up like most people. You know, I had parents who were really stressed and really overwhelmed and doing all the things that they had done to them as parents, all the fear and the control and the punishments and the yelling and the screaming. And we all grew up like that. And we thought that was the way we were meant to do it. And I became that parent. I did all the same things that my mum did, and she did all the things that her mum did. And we became foster carers. And obviously we have other issues. One of my daughters has got additional needs. So we had a lot of stress in our home. We became foster carers. And we still used the same. And it just didn't work. It wasn't working, especially with children that had trauma and a child with additional needs who's got, neurodiversity going on. And I fell upon this very different type of parenting almost by accident. And it just transformed everything in my home because I was just doing what everyone else was doing, what I was being told to do by the professionals.
It's fascinating because when I think about it, like when I was younger and sort of looking at my, like it was similar. There was a lot of fear, a lot of control. We used to laugh about this boomerang baffy, as we called like my mum's slipper, where things were sort of getting out of control, or and she couldn't handle it. She would throw the slipper and it would be back on her feet within seconds. But yeah, co-regulation for our family was definitely something that was not sort of commonplace, and I think for a lot of people even now is still, not entirely commonplace in households. So what kind of experiences then do you feel were what led you to understanding that this, was something that was required, like in your family or in the work that you do? What was it that was really affecting yourself or others that really brought this to light?
Yeah, well, we had a young man and we were looking after. We were short-term carers, so we helped kids move on to long-term placements. And nobody would take this wee guy that we had. He'd been in with us for a couple of years with really extreme trauma. And they couldn't find anyone that would have him. His behaviours were so extreme. And we tried all of the stuff, that we'd been taught by the foster care. They would get lots of training. None of it was making a difference. And he was looking at the age of 7 at going into a childcare facility, which was not going to be a good fit. He'd been through enough. It wasn't fair that was his future. And I've been starting to become interested in a thing called Adverse Childhood Experience, ACEs, and I got a ticket. Somebody at the social work department said, look, we've got a spare ticket, nobody wants it, nobody's using it, do you want it? So off I went to the ACE Aware seminar in Glasgow, and it started this whole journey for me, and it was what I knew already. It blew my mind a bit, because it was like everything I had been experiencing. But then on the back of that, I discovered the work of Brian Post at the Post Institute and his stress model, and that's really where everything started to change, when I started to learn more about that.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about that. Sorry, about the stress model.
Yeah, so it was just I googled it, as you do. I saw the name on the back of the program, and I googled it. Thank God for Google, and up it came, and all this free content, all this free videos, all of this free information, and I started to listen to what he had to say, and it was about me working on my own calm first, seeing that I was going into fear when my fears, and I was going into panic and triggered into my own history and my own trauma. And I couldn't help my child in that moment until I found my calm and I did my own work, my own emotional work. And that just by sitting next to my child and being calm, genuinely calm, not pretending to be calm, that's when my child would start to feel calm too. And the more I did that, the more often we did that together, that's when they learned to do this on their own. It's amazing. Wow. It's really amazing when you see the difference, when you just sit there and your child's meltdown and you just do nothing and say nothing and just breathe and calm yourself, how quickly the child can start to calm down. Because I was always jumping in to fix and control behaviour and stop it and make it go away, which was what I was parented with.
Mm-hmm.
It was just making it worse.
And so what kind of examples of behavior, just say, say one of the viewers has a child that may be kicking off in certain situations, how would you deal with, give us an example of an experience, and then how you would deal with that?
Well, my wee guy would come home in meltdown from school, yelling, screaming, calling us names. He'd wreck his room. He'd be up there for hours and meltdown. And I would be making it worse, because I would be going up and yelling and screaming back at myself when I look back on it. And it would just escalate, and I could bring in consequences and punishments and control, and it was just making it worse, adding more stress onto an already stressful situation. And as I said, sometimes just doing nothing is the best thing we can do in that moment, and just regulate ourselves. So I would take myself away now, and I would breathe, and I would let my child know that I'm coming back. I don't abandon them. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to take a minute. I'm just going to I'm going to breathe. I'm going to calm down. I'm coming back. I want to hear what you're saying, because I was always trying to shut him up, stop him from shouting and screaming. But actually needs me to listen to him and hear what he has to say and let him feel how he feels, instead of me jumping in trying to change how he feels. And then I can come back, and when I can listen to my child, I don't have to agree with him. I can just listen to him and say, I hear that you're really struggling. I hear that you're really mad. I hear that you're really mad at me, and that's okay. And allow all his emotion. Mm-hmm. My child calms down. And it's not until my child's in a calm, regulated state that we can really think about what went wrong and what happened and what do we do differently. And that's where learning happens, not in these moments of meltdown when I'm coming in with control and punishments. Every situation is different. You have to kind of apply it and learn how to do it. But so often we're jumping in and making it worse. We're escalating.
I wonder if this is, where, certain validating the child's feelings, their actual personal experience in a situation, and like you say, listening, actually hearing, this is how I feel. This is what my experience is. This is, what's going on for me in this moment, rather than taking it on, personally, making it sort of about us, but actually giving the space to really listen and hear to theirs. It's really powerful. I use these same or similar understandings with in relationships with adults, and really one of the first things, the key to that is literally just listening, trying to understand and be patient and hear from another person's point of view.
Yeah,
really makes all the difference.
I think it's just about being human. We didn't know that people needed this.
So how did this get to the point then that you knew you knew something needed to change, or did you know something needed to change, or did this chance encounter with the ACES ticket just come about, or was this something that you were struggling with for a while?
No, we knew something needed to change for our wee guy, and also for our own autism, and she was in meltdown a lot of the time as well. And so I started to apply it for him. I couldn't have understood that it would change everything for all of us. I was doing it to help him, not really for anything else, and it just filtered through my home. So my autistic child had started to become more calm. We were able to understand our emotions and regulate. I became calmer. My husband became calmer. My younger sibling, my young daughter's younger sibling, my younger daughter, she was probably my biggest challenge because she didn't have special needs. She didn't, have other things, and I would maybe not make allowances for her. But I started to see that, of course, she had trauma. Of course she did. She grew up in this chaos. It was our life with our sister with those special needs, and seeing that we all had been traumatized by that, living like that is traumatic. It just happened. And then when I saw the difference that it could make, I thought, why did we not know this years ago? The difference, all the children we've had through our home as carers, the difference that could have made for them. And I just wanted to tell everyone so that they could have the same change.
So how long did it take you from understanding this to actually practicing it? How long did that take you? And was that a challenge for you to take on?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course. As I say, I'm a hairdresser from Glasgow. This was never my life plan in any way. But I do laugh because I'm terribly dyslexic, and I'm sure I'm ADHD in hindsight. And I was taught at school constantly to stop talking. I was put out of rooms all the time because I talked too much. And now here I am talking for a living. I think it's quite funny to think that, we don't often pick up on these children's skills when they're young. But I had nothing, no experience around running a charity, and I just wanted to tell people. And I asked the social work department I worked for if they would let me do an event to tell the other carers. And they did. So we did that. It was terrifying. We did that. And then after that, I started to put them on in Glasgow. I don't know where I got the nerve and the confidence to do it. It just came from somewhere inside me. And then we saw the response, and it just lockdown helped us a lot because it pushed us online. And so opened us up to the world at large. And now we are offering online workshops as well as face-to-face workshops and personal workshops. So it's growing. It just grew. It was never, I never thought I'm going to have a charity and it's going to be doing this work. It just happened to me as much as it happened to.
Fantastic. And so the kind of people that you help, is it parents, teachers, who would be your sort of typical clients that you would be supporting, and how would you support them?
Yeah. Well, we first started off, I thought we'd just tell adopters, foster carers, kinship carers, and that's what we did. And then professionals started to want to come along. And during lockdown, we saw the parents on all the lots of forums on Facebook and all that stuff. It's really struggling, at crisis point. And I thought, why not offer this to them? Because it helped my autistic child, and they saw the same change in their home. And now we have probably as many people with autistic kids, ADHD kids that don't have diagnosis, kids that might need a diagnosis, with all different issues, as we do families with children that have experienced trauma. We've got a lot of, women that have families that have escaped domestic violence are coming because their children have experienced trauma. Of course they have, and so have the parents. Lots of parents who themselves have trauma history as children, and that's affecting their parenting role. And as I say, lots of there's no, anyone can come. We have people that aren't parents coming. Now we get into schools as well, which is really exciting. Schools are having us in, and they're doing workshops for us teachers and staff.
Amazing.
A lot of people that work with families are having us. We tend to do workshops for the staff and the volunteers, and then after that we'll do one for the people as well. It's really everyone.
Fantastic. Well, as you know, I'm a huge fan of the work that you're doing. I know that for me personally, as someone who experienced a lot of trauma as a result of adversity in childhood myself, when I had become a parent, I also recognized there was a lot of repeated behaviors that I didn't realize were contributing to a lot of the challenges that I was having in my own family. And likewise, once I had learned, I became informed about trauma, how it was impacting me and how my behaviors and how I was showing up. And once I'd learned the different ways, the different tools, the different strategies to actually change that, I was then able to change how I was showing up for my children and for my family and in relationships and in life. And it transformed everything. Like, it's a really, really powerful tool to, you know, understand how to take maybe what's happened in the past, or, you know, patterns that you might have grown up with, things that you didn't even realize actually were an issue because you just believed that that was normal and commonplace and everybody did it. But actually then what, you know, the outcomes of that were. And once you know that, once you become aware of it, like, it's a complete game changer then for families and for, you know, children especially. I think we're living in a really exciting time just now where so many parents and the schools are becoming so aware and understanding and informed about how trauma impacts on the development of children and families, and then things that we can actually do to turn it around and see, you know, what comes as a result of transforming that. So I think it's amazing.
It's exciting.
I'm a huge fan. Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'd love to hear as well, like,
think...
how has that healing...
Okay.
Sorry, there's a little delay here.
On you go.
So I was going to say, how has that healing like manifested? So in your life, in, you know, the life of the children, your family, and then also clients, you know, how you've helped others. How has that transformed? What does that look like now as a result?
Yeah, you know, that's a good question. Well, I mean, it's like night and day. We don't have meltdowns in our home anymore. We don't have these moments, and we're all consciously expressing emotion all the time and allowing each other to express emotion, and all emotion, not just the nice, happy stuff that we've been taught was okay, but all that stuff that we were taught was bad behaviour, which is not bad behaviour. It's just human, and we'd be expressing it, but we need to learn the appropriate way to do that. So if my child's getting distressed, I'll actually go to them and I'll say, right, let me see it. I want to hear it. And I'll give them, they can make noises, and we'll jump and stamp and scream, and we'll get it out. So that we can get, you know, I'll say 5 things you feel, and I want them to tell me 5 really hard, horrible emotions that they're experiencing. I don't just want to plaster happy, smiley emotions on it and pretend it's not there. We want to get it out and express it. And we fail, of course. We're human. I fail, and I come back now and I can say, oh gosh, there, what was that like to hear what I said? You know, all that old stuff is still there. It's really hard to, you know, when you're triggered in those moments, you go back into those old blueprints so quickly. But when you've got, like you say, when you've got this knowledge, you can come back and say, well, wow, did that really was, you know, interesting that got triggered in me, and own our part in that. But it's just calmer. It's just a more connected home with, like, even when it does, we all get stressed and we all get overwhelmed, it's a much quicker to resolve. We come back quicker. We come back. And there's always, I think, when these big eruptions do happen, there's much more connection afterwards, more breakthroughs. In the worst moments, actually, the failure is essential, because that's learning and healing happens in those moments afterwards, when we can come back and say, I really messed up there. I get really stressed.
Absolutely. You know? It's often said, one of my mentors often says, it's not in the rupture, it is in the repair that relationships are formed and, you know, bonds are strengthened. And so do you find that with the families that you work with as well, this is the kind of transformations that they have in their lives too? And do they get back to you? Do they come back again afterwards and share stories, success stories?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Oh, I love to hear how they got on. Yeah, well, what we have the 4-hour workshop, but we also have an ongoing support group. So people are invited to join that. There'll be some people that join, some people that don't. And it's great because I hear how they got on. But yeah, and I mean, often people get back to me and say, I can't believe how quickly this is working. My child is transformed. And, you know, they tell me stories and give me examples of times where normally they would have come in with fear and control and consequences and punishments, and they stopped and they did the breathing and they couldn't believe the difference it made. So yes, and it reaffirms to me that I'm on the right path, because all my doubt comes in. I'm only human, and I sometimes think, do I have the right to be telling people this? Who am I, to be saying this stuff? But then when I hear those stories and I hear them having the same changes, it's really amazing.
That's fabulous. And I'm also, like, we've got down here as well that you're very passionate too about bringing awareness of the trauma-informed approach. Is this a specific framework? Like, what is trauma-informed approach? How do you use that in what you do?
Yeah, that's $1 million question. What is a trauma-informed approach? Well, the trauma-informed approach I teach is the Brian Post-Stress model, which I talked about. I'm certified in that model, and that's the one that I applied. But there's lots of variations that are very similar. Therapeutic parenting, connected parenting, calm parenting. It's all the same thing, and it's all about us working on our calm and our regulation and sharing that and seeing that our children are not choosing to do these things. It's not a conscious choice that they're able to make, which is another belief that we have passed down the generations, that their brain is not in a place that they can, in that moment, that they can choose anything, and that we all disconnect. It's just all about what stress does to our brain, and seeing that. We talk about the trauma lens. So when we can put our trauma lens on, we can see that our child is in fear and that are choosing to do this. And we can see that child differently. And when we can see that behaviour differently, and we can see that child differently, we will feel differently, and then we can respond differently, giving ourselves time as well to recognise what's coming up for us in these moments. So yeah, I teach that, all about that, how we can do that and how we can become more trauma-informed as parents, and the difference that can make. And I tell my own story. I don't sit and tell people what to do. I tell them what I did and how it changed for me, my experience, and what I was like. I'm honest about what our home was like. And it was like every other home, but nobody talks about the yelling and the screaming and the punishing and the kicking off, because we're human. And I talk about the difference now. And I think that's what makes it a bit quite powerful for people to hear. People often say to me, you're talking about my life. And they say that they feel seen and they feel heard when they hear that they're not alone.
Which is a huge thing, especially when it comes to parenting, because it's like that, the sort of age-old saying that nobody knows what goes on behind closed doors, right? You feel so alone in your space, as if, somehow the world has got this perfect thing going on, and you just don't, it's like, I just don't know how to deal with all these things. But it's always, I find it always very, very helpful when I'm, speaking in schools or giving talks also, that the honesty about, this is what life was literally like. And we know it is also for hundreds of other people, thousands of other families too. But there's also ways out of that, to be able to turn it around too. And that's also very, very real. So I'm just thinking, like, on regards to that, is there anything specifically that you really feel that you want to share today around co-regulation and parenting, or the trauma-informed approach, or anything that you just feel is really important to share and for people to be aware of, that you'd like to leave with viewers today?
Yeah, sure. The one thing that I bang on about all the time, and it's a bit of a theme, even my children buy me things that say this on it now all the time, because I say constantly, is the just breathing. Because we don't breathe when we get stressed and we get triggered by our child's behaviours. We hold our breath and we don't let that oxygen get to our brain, and that makes it worse. And if we can just stop and say nothing and do nothing and breathe deep, slow, deep breaths, it just switches your brain on. It gives you time to regulate a little bit, to dial down that stress and fear, so that we can get back into connection with the relationship with our children. And then we can help them to do that. Even if they don't do the breathing, just by us regulating, we are co-regulating. Just by being near our children and doing our calm breathing is affecting them. And the fact that we had this power all along and we didn't know it. And if you look at even on an aeroplane, and I love that, such a great analogy, isn't it? On an aeroplane, what do we do when the plane is coming out of the sky? What is the one thing they've told us to do from day one? Is to put that oxygen mask on ourselves first before we help our child. And it's the same theory. And it is a game changer. Just breathe would be my bit of advice. Do it before you do anything.
Fantastic. Oh, that's so great. It's been amazing to have you here today, Suzanne. I love, huge fan of everything that you do, and also a huge fan of getting out to families as well, like the information and different sort of approaches, tools, techniques, strategies that you can use to really support your family and support yourself and overcoming trauma and, trauma-based behaviors. So yeah, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for being here today. I will, I guess we could just wrap up the show here. I'll say goodbye for now. Suzanne, thank you. If there's anything else you'd like to add, please do before we head off. Otherwise,
thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it. I would just say if anyone wants to attend one of our funded workshops, then just come onto our Facebook or our website, TIP Trauma Informed Parenting, and you can find all the details there, and they're fully funded, so you can join that if you want to.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Suzanne. It's been great to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you all so much for being here today. I hope that was really helpful for you. Absolutely. As you've heard throughout the show, I love the work that Suzanne is doing. It is so important. It makes such a huge difference in our lives when we learn how to regulate in ourselves and then regulate with our children, and what a transformation can occur in our families as a result. If you have any questions that you would like to submit, if you pop along to thefairyshow.com, you can put in your questions directly on the website. Also, you can watch other episodes. And if you would like to be a guest on the show also, you can apply directly from the site as well. I'd like to thank you so much for tuning in. It's been great to have you here. I'm Fairy, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your week. Bye for now. Of this beautiful land, but that beauty a rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but a rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but that beauty a rich man's world. A rich man.